Shannon Sturges forged an enviable career in front of the camera, then redirected her talents toward shaping the next generation. As a revered acting coach, she now guides artists in mastering the craft and building a foundation for success. This is The Significance, and this is Shannon Sturges. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. The Significance with Tyler and Signy starts now. She became a household name with elegance and fire in Aaron Spelling's Savannah, then carried that same truth into countless performances. Now as one of LA's most respected acting coaches, Shannon Sturges is guiding the next generation of actors with the same precision and passion she's brought to every frame. For us, Tyler and myself, is a very special reunion because we had the privilege of working alongside Shannon in the drama series Riveridge. Her story is about artistry that evolves, purpose that expands, and a career that just refuses to fade. Shannon, welcome to The Significance. We are so excited you're here with us today.
Thank you so much. And what a lovely intro. Thank
heartfelt. You are really, truly amazing.
So for those that don't know, you're the granddaughter of Preston Sturges, who won the first Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. So was a career in entertainment inevitable, or was there a different path that you considered?
I think it was inevitable, but I certainly considered another path. My mother died when I was a baby, and both my parents were actors as well. And I was raised by my grandmother, who was the third of four wives of Preston. So she was married to him during the Academy Awards and during all of his success. And she just really worried about me becoming an actor. So, I told her I was going to become a doctor, but then I changed my mind. Actually, what happened is I took Latin. And I was like, oh, no.
That will cure you immediately.
Yes. But to quell her fears, I was an English major. I didn't in college, but I dropped out of college to start acting. And I went back and finished when I was pregnant with my boys. But I think I wasn't raised in Hollywood. Like when people who know who Preston is, they've been so excited about that, that, oh, well, you must be Hollywood royalty. And it's like, that's not how I grew up,
I remember watching The Great McGinty with my father, was an old film buff. And I was telling Tyler about it the other day. We would, there was the other show that we watched was Creature Features, which we loved on a Friday night. But we'd sit with a big bag of peanuts and, shell peanuts and eat them while we were watching some old movie. So he was really amazing. And you have come from Hollywood royalty, but you're so real and down to earth, which is really beautiful. So your grandparents did a beautiful job. So was there a specific moment that made you realize that you wanted to pursue acting professionally? I mean, how old were you when you made that decision? And was there one moment that sort of was the catalyst?
It's just something I always wanted. I was always involved in trying to do plays and doing things like anything creative. And I knew how much it made my grandmother worry. So when I decided to go to college, I decided I was going to go. I grew up in Ventura, which is a small beach community about an hour north of Los Angeles. And I was going to go to Santa Barbara. And I thought, well, I shouldn't go further away from LA. I should go closer. So I moved towards Los Angeles, but I was still in school, still studying English until I started working. But I knew I had to pursue it. I knew that I would regret it if I didn't. And it was just a calling that I had. But so, there wasn't one thing that I did. It was just anytime that I was, watching TV or watching things, and I would get so excited and loved going to plays. So, again, people think it's close to LA, but it felt a million miles away.
That brings me into my next question. So who were some of your earliest influences growing up, either inside or outside of the family? Was there anyone that you kind of looked up to and thought, oh, I would like to, they inspired you in a way to, this is what I want to do?
The Preston Sturges connection, especially when I was young, was almost incomprehensible, right? It was just like, and this was the days before streaming and everything. So I'd never even seen a moving picture of my mother or anything. So I had no idea about her career, or I'd seen like one of my dad's movies once, and he got killed by Elvis.
Oh,
And so that was
dear.
like a little
Mm.
disturbing to me.
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
yeah. But, I found great teachers even in high school, and then drama teachers outside of the high school. And then my acting teacher, I moved to LA, Speiser Sturges. So those were the people who really were inspirational to me.
Did you have a mentor perhaps that played a pivotal role in your development as an actor?
That would have been Aaron Speiser. He would be the substitute sometimes in one of my college acting classes. And I always loved when he would come in and he, said, he saw me working so hard and said, she's really got something. She really puts the work in. And he didn't know about my heritage or anything like that. He saw that I was really working hard, and he's like, you
You were
can do
serious
this.
about it. You were
Yeah, I didn't know.
serious
So,
about it.
so
Yeah.
you had quite a long history with him. I didn't know how long you had worked
Yeah.
with him. Yeah, wow, that's
That's
amazing.
wonderful. That's wonderful.
I remember, I was in school and I'd be in a class on like Dostoevsky, and I'd have Doogie Howser-sides in my lap. And I felt like I wasn't doing either
about
well.
it. Talk
Right.
about a just juxtaposition, right? That is
Exactly.
that's a great story.
I was like, so I decided, strike while the iron's hot. College will always be there. I can always go back. And I did. So that was good for me and for my grandmother. I decided to, like, when I started working, to take a break from college and really pursue my path.
So many people know you best for your starring role as Reese Burton on Aaron Spelling's primetime drama Savannah. What was it like stepping into that world? And did you feel the pressure of being part of such a high profile show at the time?
That show was such a blessing. There was, it didn't, it was so much fun because it was on a new network, and I had auditioned for him a few times for a few different roles. And when Savannah came about, it was just the girls. I love those women, the guys. It was just a magical time. It was really, really fun. And the original concept was that we were supposed to go to New York. The Savannah girls go to New York. And after the pilot, they were like, this is so special. Nothing was set in the South then. And they said, well, let's keep it in the South. Let's make it about these girls in the South. And so that, I regret that I didn't buy a house in Atlanta back in the day.
There's so many wonderful experiences I know personally, that I've forgotten about. And then when somebody starts, sort of drawing your memory, you start taking a walk that you're like, wow, I forgot about that. That was really, just all the incredible adventures and all the interesting people that you meet and all the amazing experiences that you have. So
It's really remarkable when I'm working with my students and they're starting to experience it. It's so exciting for me. I'm like,
I
oh, this is
bet.
gonna,
I bet. I
I
bet.
recently had a student get a series regular part, and I was just so thrilled for him. And I'm like, oh,
Mm.
this, here are the things you need to do. And this is so exciting for you. And I can't believe that this is,
Oh,
there's
that's
nothing more
wonderful.
fun than driving to work as an actor.
It's
That's
true. Doesn't
amazing.
matter what time your call time is either. Doesn't matter
Yep.
if they want you there at 3 o'clock in the morning, you are just skipping all the way there. It's wonderful. And you must have such an incredibly, I would say almost like a maternal, feeling towards them when they do that, because when you're in class, it is such an intimate setting. You open yourself up, you become so vulnerable, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. I mean, it takes a lot of courage to be an actor, period. But I feel like class is such an intimate space because you're willing to try things that you might not be willing to try elsewhere. And so
Absolutely. And you've
that just
got
must,
to.
yep, you
Yeah.
absolutely do.
Yeah.
But it must be just such a wonderful feeling for you. That's just great. So we had the pleasure of working with you when you portrayed Blythe Jensen on Riveridge as a guidance counselor. And funny we're talking about this, Blythe was deeply nurturing and compassionate, clearly as you are in class, an emotional compass to those around her. How closely did her attributes align with your own?
I loved her. She was such a great character. And I just have to say, I still feel so terrible. I've got to confess to anybody watching that it's the only time I have slept through my alarm and been late to set. And it still haunts me. I am still horrified that that happened.
I
So
don't even
anyway,
remember that. That's
I was going
amazing.
to say, oh no,
that makes me so
Tyler and I
happy.
were talking about that the other
I
day, and I'm
remember
like,
that.
no, what that happened? I don't remember that either.
Well, you know, it's so
Yeah, and my phone was turned off and they had to pound on the door.
I
And
don't
I was
even
like,
remember that. That's so funny.
I was
Oh, funny. I don't remember
horrified.
that
And it was like
either.
day one. I was
Oh
like,
my
oh, I'm
gosh.
showing up like some kind of
Oh,
like
it's so
unprofessional diva. So
it's so
anyway,
well, it's so interesting
I'll be in
because
my dressing room.
it's so interesting because it was such a guerrilla style, fast and furious
No, it
shoot
was.
that obviously, you know, we hired capable actors, but as a director, I worked with everybody, but beforehand, but I kind of wanted to at least have everybody that kind of embodied their character a little bit because it was so fast and furious.
Mhm.
So
right.
I always got that side of you, that nurturing, compassionate. It's so funny because speaking of that show, you worked with Signy's daughter, Isabella. And what I got from that was I watched you interact with her and I watched how you handled young
Mhm.
talent. So when you transitioned to a coach, I saw that back then, if that makes sense. So it just made sense to me because I was like, oh my gosh, how she worked with, with Isabella. It was just seamless and how you made her feel comfortable and
Yeah,
just nurturing. So yeah.
you were absolutely amazing. You really were.
Oh, thank you.
It's
Yeah.
true. It was sort of a preview for what was to come. Very nurturing. Yep, definitely.
What would you say is a misconception people have about actors or the industry that you wish you could correct?
Oh, another fantastic question. I think that actors are stupid and vain. You know, like
Mhm.
Oh, come on,
I
Shannon.
do.
Tell us what you really think, please.
Well, there was the shows which I watched and loved, like Barry and the Kaminsky Method, but the jokes were about the actors oftentimes,
Mhm.
and I understand, because sometimes I have had people who weren't, try to do a scene or a monologue from somebody who's a different race, and it's like, no. Well, you don't understand what the experience is of this person and this age, somebody doing a 20-year-old guy doing a 45-year-old man's monologue. It's like, yeah. And so that was a lot of the jokes in those shows, right? So, because I think that actors, for the most part, and of course, the reason that that stuff happens is there are some stupid, vain people who just want to be famous. But most actors are so brave and so vulnerable, and to really open yourself up to that experience and be that vulnerable and open. And because celebrity comes along oftentimes with people having success, very few students that I work with entered wanting to just be famous. They want to create art, and I think there's a little part of everybody who wants to be seen and wants to give a voice to people who are like them. But that's the wonderful thing, is we watch these movies and we relate to the people, even if they're nothing like us, because the human condition is the same for all of us.
As a director, it's so interesting too, because I would like to answer this question myself because I find that most actors that I work with are innately shy.
People are always shocked to hear that I'm an introvert. And I'm like, yeah, I get my energy from being alone, but I love being with people, but after a while I get totally drained. So, and I think people think that, like, oh, they can't be an actor if they're introverted or shy. And it's like, no.
It actually allows you to have the freedom to do something outside of yourself that you would not normally do. I mean, for me,
I use that term all the time. A
it's
detective.
fantastic.
Yeah.
You
An
really are.
anthropologist.
Exactly. So, I love what you just said. That's wonderful because I think that's really accurate, that so many people would find that very hard to believe, that somebody I was painfully shy as a child. I used to hide behind my mother, behind her skirts all the time. And it took years I mean, you want to talk about punishing yourself, become an actor and start auditioning. If you
Yes.
or if you want to
Oh,
gain a
I don't have
tremendous
enough
amount of
rejection in my
courage.
life.
Yeah, right,
Mm.
right, right. Anyway, I'm sure you must have a funny, surprising, or even embarrassing story from an audition or when you were on a set, other than your alarm not going off and being late your first day on Riveridge, which we totally forgot about.
I had this big monologue in this audition, and it was so good at home, and it was for a comedy, and it was like, and then I choked. I like totally went up on my line. I was like, "Oh, can I start again?" And then I started again, and I choked again, and then I started again, and it was awful. It was like, oh my goodness. And so I think about that one too as probably one of the worst auditions. I don't think that person ever had me back in again. Everybody
Mhm.
has
We
those,
all we
Mhm.
all go through it. It is an
you
absolute rite of
know.
passage.
I was listening to an actor talk about when she was on set in a really big movie and that was happening to her. And the director just took her aside and said, you know, you've got this. We hired you for a reason. Don't worry about it. Relax,
Breathe,
and just really talked her
breathe.
through it. Yes. And this was like, life changing role for her. And she thought she was going to get fired. And so a lot of times there's really wonderful people on set too when that happens. They can talk you through that. But can't think of one that happened on set, but that's probably because I've blocked it out.
I know that one.
If it's really terrible, it's like, oh, let's forget about that.
Right, exactly. I'm gonna put that, compartmentalize that somewhere where in the deep dark recesses of my brain. You know what's so wonderful about class though too, and being and I say this to anybody who is listening, that I cannot stress the importance of being in a good class and studying with a good coach such as yourself. That
Well,
it
and
is
it's so much fun.
it is fun.
It's one of the professions that everybody expects you to be professional, the art forms, right? If you're taking a painting class, nobody says, so how long are you going to give this a whirl before you stop or, till you get a real job? So, because I'm going to train all of my students to be professional working actors. But I have students who just want to do the art. I've always wanted to do this. I love doing this. I've got rocket scientists. I've got doctors. I've got people who are like, maybe they'd all be happy to take a role, but they just want to explore. And it's the art form that you get to use your entire body, right? You get to use your brain for all of the analyzing and all the cerebral things. And then you can use your body for the rest of it to express it. So I think it's just such a great art form.
Well, the thing about class as well is that it's such a learning ground and it's such a space to try things where it's okay to fall down and make a mistake. But in the process of doing it, it's like any other muscle. You're strengthening that muscle. So when you are in a situation where you're auditioning or on a set, and all of a sudden that fear, which if no actor's ever experienced it, I would find that hard to believe, that you're it's like almost an out of body experience. You're like, I can't believe I'm standing here and I got this. And now I'm scared to death. Like, what were they thinking? Why did they hire me? And that panic in your training teaches you to temper that and make it work for you as opposed to bringing you down, lift you up. But that's difficult on a good day. So the more you're doing it in a class, the stronger you're strengthening those muscles. So
For my working actors, for my like master class, for those people, I'm like, if you're not failing in class sometimes, I want you to fail in here. So you're not failing out there,
Mhm.
exactly.
right?
Mhm.
This is the place to do it. This is the safe place to swing for the fences and to try something. And if you're not
I
doing
love
that
it.
sometimes,
Mhm.
right? Why are you paying me all this money? Let's
Right.
let's
Mhm.
let's make you bad every once.
Mhm.
Let's find your limits. Let's find some
Mhm.
place where I can feel like I'm doing
Right.
my job.
Yeah, if you have a weak spot where we can strengthen it.
After spending so much time in front of the camera, obviously we've mentioned and we've alluded that you've become, a coach. So what was that transition like and how did it unfold?
On Savannah, I was named the actor most likely to direct, but then we got canceled. And so I think people saw it in me. I always encourage my people to never direct another actor, and I never did, but I could see it, And when I was in class and when I was with my teacher, he always is like, "You've got the gift," And I would lean in and I would like, "This is what's wrong with that scene, and this is how you could fix it." And so he was getting older and he wanted to work a little less, and he's like, "You should buy the studio." that's what you should do. And I was like, you're right, I should. Because when I was teaching for him before I bought it, I started growing the studio all of a sudden. So I understood the business side of it, but also I was able to bring in more people. And I think what's unusual about me for most of the acting teachers, and this sounds like I'm trying to be very diplomatic, and I am, but it's also true. Most teachers find their calling pretty early. And so they
Mhm.
don't actually have careers as actors.
Mm.
And I'm the rare person who's had a web series, had a network series. I've done independent films. I've done huge studio films. I've experienced all the parts of the business, done the screen tests and all of that. So I can really bring that wealth of experience to my students. I understand what it's like to be in the audition room constantly when all of a sudden you're getting so close to so many things and it's breaking your heart. And I'm like, no, don't you understand? You're in it. Your heart's being broken because you're so close.
How has coaching other actors changed the way you think about acting yourself?
The interesting thing, because I don't act anymore, I'm focused on my students, but I'm so much better now. It has made me such
Well,
a
it
better actor because now I
opens you
really get
up.
it from the other side.
Yep,
Yeah, I
I
really
could only
understand when I tell
imagine.
my students, most actors, most of the problems that actors have in their performances come from a good place. They come from wanting to be perfect, wanting to, have everything perfect, and they want to avoid the messy. But what we
Mhm.
love as an audience is the messy, right? We don't like it so messy that,
Right.
you know, I want you to be word perfect, but if you focus on being word perfect, the performance is off,
Exactly.
right? So the mistakes that the actors make come from this good place of making the director and the writer and the producer and everybody very happy. And I'm like, no, you got to make the character happy. You got to go in and do what is needed for the character. So I get it now that I'm on the other side so much more than I did. I can see it like, oh yeah, the mistakes that I made were always just wanting to make everybody else happy.
What gives you the greatest sense of accomplishment when it comes to your students?
Well, there's a few just in class, seeing them have those breakthroughs. Like all of a sudden, like seeing the light bulb go off, seeing them have this amazing scene. I get the chills when it's amazing. I can't help like the goosebumps. And so I'm like, that's my barometer. I'm like, oh, I can't lie about that. I felt it. And then of course, when they also have professional success too. I love when they're making great strides in class and that's really satisfying. But then when the industry takes effect, like I've just recently had a whole bunch of people that have worked so hard for so long, book,
Mm.
like
Oh,
big
wow.
life-changing things. So, and I'm just
Amazing.
like, I say that my goal is to get them out of class.
Mm.
And then I want them back in between jobs,
Mhm.
right? I want
Exactly.
you
I was
out
gonna
and I want you
say,
shooting, and then when I had a client, she was on a sitcom. So it's like, okay, let's work on drama. Right. And then she was using an accent on the sitcom. So I'm like, well, she's like, I want to work in my real voice. Well, then she got a drama or dramedy where she had to do another accent, but it was like, it's okay. So it's like, especially if you get on a series for a while, it's wonderful, but sometimes it stops being creatively satisfying. Not always, but then you need to be able to continue to make it creatively satisfying for yourself. And if not, then you can be in class and doing those other things and being so
exactly.
grateful for the job that you have that
That's
Stretching
paying the
those
bills.
muscles.
providing you.
Stretching those
Mhm.
Yeah.
muscles in between, yeah.
Almost nobody becomes an actor to do one thing.
What's your personal philosophy when it comes to acting, and how do you help actors balance technique with instinct?
The brain is good for the preparation, right? So when we were talking about being a detective, so getting in there and doing all of that creative working and making sure that you're answering all of the questions. Because I think sometimes, especially when you've been working for a while, you think you've answered the questions and then you go back and you're like, oh, I didn't really create what my relationship is with this person. So you could just go back and double check and make sure. Because again, it's not purposely being like lazy. It's just like, oh, I totally forgot to create what that relationship is with that person. And then so your brain's for all the prep. And then when you're there, let it go. You've got to trust in the process like a professional athlete, just you can't be thinking, I got to do this, do that, do it right. Then you've got to just be in the character, grounded in the character
And in the
and trust your
moment.
instincts. A lot of times I will have people say that, oh, I'm a instinctual actor, acting class made me worse when they've been other places, right? That, oh, I felt like it made me worse. And there's some people that aren't very good at what they do, but in terms of teaching acting, but I also think it just comes from that place of um, wanting to please and perform. And if you let that go, some of the worst scenes and monologues that I have at the studio are when people really want to perform. And so it comes from this good place, right? And then it's like, oh, just chill, just less, 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 less. And then sometimes they're just brilliant. And you're like, oh, I hope that they understand how brilliant they just were. Your instinct is as important as everything else. You've got to do all of the work and then you got to let it be instinctual. So it really is a perfect blending. And so sometimes people can be wonderful and not have done any work because they're just so connected, right, to that character and understanding that. But it usually doesn't help you to sustain if you don't have a technique. When it's not something that you understand, when it's a character who's very different, who's very, they behave and they move differently than you do, then you're going to need to fall back on that technique. And if you don't have it, then you're doing one thing always. I always say that a lot of times, casting directors and directors will give you direction, not because they didn't like what you did, but they want to make sure that you can take it.
And the thing that you were talking about in terms of, building the relationship between other characters that you're working with is that, when you walk into a room, you carry all the years that you are up to that point and all those experiences with you that push your buttons, motivate you, frustrate you, make you happy, make you sad, whatever it is. And when you create the character, that backstory is so important, and the technique is what teaches you how to do that. And I love what you're saying because it is a fine combination of technique and instinct. But then once you're standing in that spot, it's like let it all go, and what comes out organically. What happens from doing all that work leading up to it. So it was a beautiful description.
And as we were talking before, it just makes you so vulnerable, right? When you plan everything out, you're playing it too safe. It's like you're armored, like we're going to do it like this and like this. And when you're let it be with instinctual, it makes you really vulnerable because you could do something stupid. You could do something that makes you looks foolish. But of course, those are the wonderful moments.
Okay, so when this is a really good question too. When a student feels disconnected from a scene, how do you guide them back into the truth of it?
I always encourage my students to talk about their characters from the I perspective. I'm feeling I'm, and it's not to, have them be hippy dippy and forget who they are, but because it's really another great barometer, right? It's hard to say I'm lonely and you feel it when you say it. And if it doesn't feel right for your character, then you've got to find the other thing that does feel right. But we as the actors want to avoid the pain of our characters. But there's certain scenes that are going to hurt. I tell my students I use the other word for crappy. I say it's, crappy good, right? Because you're not going to feel good after a lot of these scenes because your character's just been through it. You'll feel good as an actor because you did what you needed to do, but you're not like at the end of this scene where you just broke up with the love of your life going, yeah, right? It's like, that feels like I just broke up with somebody because you did.
Do you believe it's valuable for actors to engage with other art forms outside of acting? And if so, why?
Absolutely. Because very rarely are you going to be playing an actor, right? You're going to be playing somebody else who has other life experience. And creativity can bring you into painting, dancing specifically because you get to use your body. You get to, be in it and explore it. And I think all creative art forms are going to be useful to an actor, right?
Mhm.
That will be, can unlock something else. And also live a life.
Hmm.
Actors who only think
Thank you.
about acting, right?
Thank
It's a
you.
little too navel gazing, right? But all
Yes,
of a sudden,
yes.
so my actors who have other life experience. I'm like, that's what's going to make you special. You're going to audition for the pit and you've been a nurse. You're going to bring something special to that, an authenticity to that, an authority to it, so don't stop living your life, Yeah.
What advice do you give actors who are just starting out?
Give it time, do the work, don't sprint ahead. I know people are really anxious I think if they're getting opportunities, take them. There's people who think like, oh, you should study for 2 years before you take any auditions. Like, I understand youth is a commodity and, I want you to take it, but you still got to put the work in. Enjoy the work. Realize that hopefully it happens for you in the next 3 days or the next year, but it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. So, and if you don't love it, don't do it because it'll break your heart.
I remember seeing an interview with Harrison Ford and when he made it very big and they referred to him as an overnight sensation and he just laughed. He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been up on roofs in Los
Mm,
Angeles as a roofer for the past, 7, 9 years paying my dues. There
mm,
was no overnight success with Indiana Jones, It
mhm,
didn't happen that way. It
mhm,
was, and somebody else used the example of so many start out at the same time and then so many will fall by the wayside because they don't have the patience, the grit, the tenacity to just keep doing it because it is a journey and it is a process and sometimes it takes longer. Some people are fortunate, but I think that a lot of the times when it takes longer, you're building all those other experiences, into your body and into your being.
And being able to define for yourself what success is. You were talking earlier about sort of a version of imposter syndrome, right? There are actors who are working who don't feel like they know what they're doing. They're just one moment away from being found out and caught. I've got people who are in class who are maybe not booking, but are putting up wonderful, beautiful work, right? To me, that's success. That's more important. I understand you need to pay bills and let's go and book that commercial. Let's go book that guest star. But you can't put your happiness and everything in other people's hands. And that's what's so nice about the current climate is that you can make your own content, right? You can. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, you don't have to wait for somebody to hire you, which
mhm.
Tyler, you've known for a long
Yeah,
time.
exactly. How do you help actors stay resilient with rejection? I'm sure rejection is talked about a lot in your classes.
It's so hard. I say, if you're doing this right, at some point, all of you are going to be in my office crying. They're going to be there going, I got so close and this didn't happen. And to understand that that means that you're in the game and that they're not rejecting you. They're just, and this, I know it doesn't hurt maybe that much less, but they're just choosing someone else. Sometimes it has nothing to, most of the time, by the way, when you get down to the wire and this from, what you're doing, it wasn't that somebody lost the part. It was just somebody else was a better fit for it.
When I was younger, my self-esteem was in direct correlation with the amount of work and the jobs I was getting. And it took me a while to really settle in and look, now that I have such a full life and so many things that bring me so many, my children in particular. I know, Shannon, you understand that. But to find that balance, because I think that even makes you a better artist. When it is not all encompassed in this one direction, that there's many different layers that bring you that happiness, that peace, and your self-esteem.
I love reading or listening to actor memoirs, right? Because you start learning how often, oh, that person got turned down for this role and that role and this role and that role, and it's wonderful to get to understand that. And I think people think, oh, you only see the successes, you see the highlight reel, but you don't see what they were going through, all the no's that they got.
How have you seen the entertainment industry change since you first began in your own personal career?
I mean, I feel like a dinosaur and how much I've seen it change. I remember when there was like kind of the first self tape. So it was like, oh, okay, I'll put myself on tape because I was in Atlanta and like, okay. And now that's mostly what it is, right? The Zoom room callbacks, the it's changed so much, all of the streaming. Uh, Financially, well, there's more opportunities, but there seems to be less money for the journeyman actors, right? The people who make a living and aren't household names seem to be fewer, but there is more opportunities. There are more roles and more streamers and more, I feel bad sometimes. I'm like, I can't possibly add another show or a streaming service to my plate right now. But I'm glad that it's happening. I'm glad people are getting opportunities. So those are the big changes that I've seen. And of course on the horizon is AI.
You kind of led me into the next question about self-taping and the rise of the virtual auditions. So do you coach students differently based on self-tapes versus in-person auditioning? Obviously, as a director, in person, there's an energy in the room. So how do you coach students differently for self-tapes versus old school auditioning?
It's honestly the same in terms of the acting, process. Most actors would prefer to be in the room. I have an actor she's working all the time, and she had her first in-person audition, and she's booked the lead in a movie. She's but she had her first, she was like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, don't worry, you'll love it. It's fantastic. There's things like eye lines, there's things like I try to make them feel comfortable about self tapes because you have more control, in that. I think what happens is a lot of times actors will play it safe, and then they're hoping they'll get that exciting note from the director in the room. So I'm like, do what you want to do. Again, don't play it safe. I think what I tell my actors is, especially with self tapes, is they're trying not to lose a job they don't have.
Mm.
And you can't lose
Right?
what you don't have.
Right?
Mhm.
So they're
Can't
playing it
lose what you
super
don't have.
safe. I'm like,
Mhm.
fight for that part. Go and get
Yeah.
it. And
Mhm.
so for a self tape, I had an actor, and she had it's like a 3-page monologue where she was conducting an autopsy. Right? So she's just talking and talking and talking. And so I said, well, now because it's a self tape, let's go get yourself a watermelon, a papaya, some fruit, and a knife, and have it be out of frame. And you can be doing things, and you can, and I would
The physical activity.
1000% never tell somebody to bring a knife into an audition, right? In person, right? No. But in that instance, like, okay, there's something that you can do. I wouldn't make it kitschy with props and things, but if the prop is going to help you, why not?
So we touched on this, but what are your thoughts on AI in the industry? Do you see it as a threat or as an opportunity for actors?
Both. um, but it's coming, and I try to look back
Mhm.
on it as like talkies, right? It's going to
Right?
change things. Some people are going to lose their jobs. Some people are going to get replaced. And I watched a show, a series, something that was AI the other day at a film festival. And it was so creepy. It was so, I
Oh,
kept
I
going,
bet.
why don't I like this? And it was
Mhm.
just so artificial. So I think that the actor who tries to be perfect, right? You can't compete with AI for perfection, but the messy, that human thing that you were talking, Tyler, about not speaking in full and complete and perfect sentences, right? Cutting yourself off and rethinking and all of that. These are the things that humans do, right? So I think it will probably seriously impact background actors the most. But for actors, I think we all want to watch a real person, you know?
What's a performance, not necessarily your own, that left a lasting impression on you and why?
Well, recently, having seen Adolescence and having seen Owen Cooper's performance, the young gentleman in that, the young
Mhm.
man, wow, that broke my heart. And Stephen Graham as well. Everybody in that, the performances are so raw and wonderful. So that's left a lasting impression. I thought Annette Bening was so fantastic in Naiad.
Oh,
Mhm.
yes. She's
Mhm.
amazing.
She's
She's
fantastic in
just
Mhm.
everything.
amazing.
Mhm.
Amazing.
Years ago, I saw a one man Macbeth, It was probably my favorite night of theater. And the
Oh,
actor, I've forgotten what the actor's name was, but he was on Game of Thrones. I think he was Stannis Baratheon, but he wasn't at that time. It was pre that. And that was just a performance where I couldn't believe what the actor did in that amount of time.
what is something fans might be surprised to learn about you?
I have a very goofy sense of humor. Um, uh, hmm. I guess the introversion is the first thing that I think because people, especially even when I'm teaching, because I'm so out there, but then I've got to be like, and when I teach, I tend to be kind of vulgar, which I'm not in my real life.
If you could play any role from any era, even one far outside your usual casting, what would it be?
I think, a Lady Macbeth. I think, you know, back in the day, it would always be those sweet and innocent kind of characters I would want. And now it's like these women who like hold space and power. Yeah, there's so many great, roles. I mean, I don't sing, but, doing a role like Sunset Boulevard would be fantastic, right? If we can just be miraculous and I can sing as well, but I can't. I can't.
When you reflect on your journey as both an actress and a coach, what do you think fills you with the most pride?
When I get a text or something where somebody's like, I booked it, Shannon, I can't believe it. And they're so happy and they're so thankful. And that makes me so happy. Um, I can't wait for the acceptance speech at Emmys, Oscars. I don't care, but I'm looking forward to some point somebody thanking me. I joke that they're contractually obligated to thank me, but honestly, even if somebody doesn't thank me, when they know what I've done for them, and it's still them. That's the great thing is like I can give the best notes in the world, but if you can't metabolize them, if you can't do it, it's still the actor who's their butt's on the line. They're the one who's doing it. But I love to have that collaboration and let them. I say what I do more than anything is I give people permission to follow their instinct, permission to, and sometimes people go, I can do that. I'm like, you can do whatever because I'm teaching, so I'm profane and vulgar. You can do whatever the F you want, Yes, you can. Of course you can. And if not, then they'll tell you don't. So yeah, I get so excited when I just see, I mean, I get to help people's dreams come true. How fantastic is that?
Very, very special. Very special.
What's one dream that you still hope to achieve, whether personally or professionally?
My dreams are still materializing. Oftentimes people tell me I should be directing. I don't know about that because I just want to work with the actors, like maybe a co-director where somebody else does all the cameras and I get to only work with the actors. That's what I really love. So as corny as it sounds, I'm really living my dream. I got to have my fantastic career and now I get to help other people have theirs. I mean, that's pretty special.
That's lovely. That's really lovely.
So we've reached the significant seven. So these are seven questions that every single guest, they're the same questions for every guest. So, Shannon, are you ready for the significant seven?
I am.
If you had to choose one word that holds the most significance in your life, whether it defines you, guides you, or challenges you, what would it be and why?
Abandonment. I've had a lot of pain in my life. And so I always have to be sort of aware of where my motivations are coming from or my pain and sort of checking to make sure if this is reality or back from my childhood. So I apologize if I'm going off because this is just the seven, but a lot of times I can see actors. One of the notes I'll give is you're playing a mood. Like I'll watch an actor walk into a scene and I'll be like, oh, they're supposed to be crying in the scene because they walk in and they're like, "Mm, I'm so sad. And I'll be like, what's wrong? Well, I have this pain. And I'm like, we don't, right? My mother died when I was a year old, right? I don't walk around being sad about it all the time. It's just a part of my life and my existence, right? It's like every time I talk about my mother, I don't go, my mother, right? I usually make a joke so that people are feeling sorry for me and bad for me. So I think always being just aware of what those things in our life, that motivate us, good and bad.
What you bring as a teacher, as a coach to others, your level of empathy that you're able to put forth. What a gift. Well, just a beautiful gift. What is the most significant piece of advice you have ever received?
To let it go. Let it go. We hold on to things, injustices, and they just hold us back, you know, right? Forgiveness is a gift that you give yourself, not someone else, when you forgive someone.
What is the most significant risk you've ever taken?
Dropping out of college to pursue acting and getting married, that's a risky business.
What significant moment in your life changed how you see the world?
When my husband and I were dating, we were running late for something and we had to stop at an ATM to get cash. And there was a digger in the parking lot that was, getting ready to, there was some construction happening. And he, instead of running back into the car, sat on the digger and pretended to drive for a little bit and then got back in. And I went, that is one goofy, silly man. And I think he is my husband. I think he
Oh,
is the one.
wow.
So just like that goofiness of, that he's my guy, because there's so many, I ask my students sometimes to like, because there are those moments where you're one person before and you're another person after, right? Birth of your child, but times when you lose somebody, a breakup, things like that. But I think I saw the world differently after that.
What significant relationship has shaped you the most?
I think I'm going to have to say my children.
Mhm.
Mm.
Being a mom and also my mother. I think the absence of having that relationship, of growing up without something that most people take for granted. I recognize there's a lot of people who don't, but I think it's been very healing to get to be a mother. My mother didn't get a chance to be raised by her mother either. Her mother died when she was 3. So I sort of felt like I had years of mothering to make up for. But then I have to realize that my children have their own life and their own, that I don't have to fix my relationship with my mother with them. I get to have my own relationship there. So, yeah,
Beautiful. What is the most significant truth you've come to understand about yourself?
that I'm worthy and that everybody is. But I think you got to start with yourself.
That's an amazing answer.
It
Yes,
is. Amen.
absolutely. Well, Shannon, it goes without saying that I love you. We love you.
We do.
I love
And
you
I, and
guys too.
I'm so honored that you stopped by and took the time to enlighten, all of our listeners, and your students are very, very lucky to have you.
Very lucky, very
Thank
blessed.
you. I'm lucky to have them.
Shannon, what a pleasure. Thank you so, so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you so much.